Hey, Plain Talk listeners, have something to say? Call or text Plain Talk with your questions, comments, or headlines you want us to cover.
Just dial 701-587-3141. Leave us your message or shoot us a text with your name and location, and you could be featured on an upcoming show.
Hi, my name is Ashley, and I am in Jamestown.
Hey, Rob and Chad. My name's Tony. I live in Grand Forks.
That's 701-587-3141.
Call us, text us, vent, praise.
We want you in the conversation. Thanks for being part of the show.
Now let's get back to today's episode.
Welcome back. I think the thing to take from that interview is that North Dakota is very, very vulnerable to commodity prices, oil prices in particular. All due respect to our ag friends, wheat prices don't swing the stick in North Dakota revenues the same way that oil and gas prices do. So this is a big, big deal. Now there's hope there. Ron talking about natural gas being North Dakota's next big economy. That's very heartening. I think there's still some things that we can do on enhanced recovery. The Bakken 2.0 stuff I think sounds promising, but his call for fiscal prudence right now, and he kind of singled out the school meals thing, which both you and I support. But your point, I think, was well made that money's fungible. And I think overall, setting aside how any one of us feels about school meals, that call for fiscal prudence right now, I think is well warranted. We're in a lot of uncertainty right now.
So what I heard from Ron, and I think it's the right advice, like we have to go into the next state budget and probably city budgets with our eyes wide open. I mean, I think that's basically what he said. He's not saying we need to panic and we need to all be, but instead, hey, here's the reality on the ground. Where the price is right now. We didn't get into why the price is lower, all that kind of stuff. I think, a real conversation about eyes wide open about what the budget looks like moving forward. This isn't new for North Dakota, who's so commodity dependent, to have some tough budgets. And now we have to make sure we're funding our priorities. I mean, I could give a list of things that I don't think the state should be funding anymore. As you know, K through 12 isn't one of them. I mean, is there something that K through 12 can do more efficiently? I think that now's the time to be thinking about those things. Human services do things more efficiently, but we have to go in with our eyes wide open and not have the attitude that we're just going to do the same thing we've always done because we've had a good decade or so of our budget.
20 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Outside of the blip under Dalrymple with the allotments, I think we've done some things to prepare for it. I think the extraction tax reform, where we got rid of the trigger and pinned it to a flat rate. Right now, his point right now, we would be having a budget crisis right now
today
if that trigger had stayed in place. So getting rid of that, we've prepared some things. We've made our tax revenues a little bit as more predictable as they can. And one of the reasons we didn't get into why oil prices are low, because there's really not a hell of a lot North Dakota can do about it. What do we do? I mean, maybe there's some tweaks or we could get a little bit more efficient with regulation or something like that. But North Dakota's done what it can for the most part.
Don't you think it's interesting though? Like when you go to the pump, I have the electric car now, so I don't go to the pump anymore. But remember they used to have those, Biden did that, when gas prices were high. Whenever I saw those stickers back in the day, I'd think, having oil prices higher and gas prices higher, really great for the state of North Dakota. It's like this weird sort of balancing act between
nobody likes high food prices and high oil prices like a North Dakotan. That's when we're making bank when those prices are high.
But it's always you hear national politicians talking about gas prices being low, and it's like, well, that means that our schools might not have as much
like
funding.
The price of beef right now, which is through the roof. I mean, I'm still paying like $7 a pound right now. I was getting some ground beef for spaghetti. I think I was paying $6.83 or something like that. A pound.
Next thing you know, Port's going to be doing some ground turkey there for his spaghetti if his prices continue.
I like beef. But but you talk to a North Dakota cattle rancher right now, they're pretty happy.
Yep.
So it's a tough dynamic. I think the politics around it are really interesting. I thought it was good talking about the politics of like carbon pipeline, building out some of that. That's something I'm very, very worried about because, another one of Ron's big messages is we got to get better at the things we're doing. And a lot of times what that means is technological innovation. Some of it is technique, but some of it's just infrastructure. Really interesting. I don't think people consider, we talk about like paving rural roads and maintaining them properly and everything. I don't think you understand how important that is, obviously, for our ag friends, bringing their crops to market, bringing their equipment out to the places they need to work, but also our friends in the oil and gas industry,
Right.
their ability to get to some of these places. That stuff's vitally important. But I'm really worried that we're a country that can't build infrastructure right now because, frankly, the political extremes have taken those debates and put them in a funhouse mirror where if you want to build a pipeline or you want to build a transmission line or something, you're an evil person. I mean, that's kind of where we're at politically right now. That's killing us.
Yeah, it was sort of interesting, Ron insinuated or basically said that sort of the environmental groups nationally are sort of behind some of this stuff. And it is interesting to think if that's true, that the far right folks are being used by the liberal environmental
Oh, I
groups.
think it's absolutely true. I
So
think it's
it's
absolutely true.
Well, and I think you see it here. I mean, like you said, the strange bedfellows, when you've got sort of the Sons of Liberty and the DRC being on the same sides of landowner rights sort of things. It's really, really interesting. And
Right.
again, like some of these advocacy efforts is, okay, you're against this, but what are you for? Because eventually
Yeah.
we need to get this stuff to
Well,
market.
I don't want to be dismissive of all their complaints either.
No,
I
of
also
course not.
want to protect property rights.
Well, but not
Uh,
to mention, I mean, Ron pointed out that Summit screwed up by sending the wrong landmen up here
Absolutely.
that weren't doing a good job for the industry.
They fumbled the
Yeah.
ball.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question at this point. I still think it was a worthy project, but it sure doesn't seem like it's going to go forward now. So I think the question is what's next and how do we do it better? But we're at a point where we're still litigating the Dakota Access Pipeline crossing. It's been operating for what, decade now?
Right.
And we're still litigating. There's gotta be a finish line. I am all for an arduous, thorough regulatory process, but there's got to be a finish line where it's like, okay, we've checked the boxes. We're going to build the pipeline or we're going to build the transmission line or whatever it is. But I mean, even the transmission lines, setting aside the stuff about data centers. And I think both you and I are generally pretty supportive of data centers I don't want them to drive electrical prices through the roof, but outside of that, if they're built responsibly and stuff, I'm fine with them. But even setting that demand aside, American households are using more energy. The Chad Oban household is using more energy. You've got an electric car now. There's more people who are making those choices. We got more devices. We're plugging in devices to charge. We're running computers all the time. Our electrical demand is going because of the choices we're making and the way we want to live our lives is going through the roof. And the only way we're going to continue to supply all of that is if we build transmission lines so we can dispatch energy and get it where it's needed.
It's easy to be against everything, right? It's
Yeah.
easy to be against everything, but at some point we have to, both sides have to offer some solutions. I mean, I think I've said on here before that I've been frustrated over the years that the fossil fuel industry for a long time was just like, climate change is not a thing. And so therefore we're not going to change anything. I think we've gotten a little bit past that with carbon capture and some other,
Which is interesting. Like it got a little past it, but at the same time, that climate change has really been de-emphasized certainly in our
Right.
national and global debates.
I think that's true. And and it is funny. I still think that if we're going to get to where we need to get on carbon, that carbon capture has to be a huge part of that, because we're not changing all those things that you just talked about, plugging in my car and my phones and all these. And I expect my lights and my heat to come on at a cheap rate every time I flip it on. We have those expectations, and we have to figure out other ways to capture carbon. And I think carbon capture in a place like North Dakota is how you do that. But
And also when you
interesting
do things,
politics.
you get better at them.
Right.
I think that's another part. Let's switch gears. Let's talk about, I have more reporting on the F5 project.
Oh, more
And
clickbait?
Chad's referring to a letter to the editor that was suggesting that I am clickbaiting this. I guarantee it is not clickbait. What occasioned this most recent report is actually something I didn't know. I didn't know that the Attorney General, after my first story back in early January, I did not know that the Attorney General Drew Wrigley's office, and specifically the Consumer Protection Division within his office, had sent the F5 project. You know what the F5 project is? We've been talking about it for a while. Adam Martin is the founder. He's a he's a felon. But that was part of his story, right? Is that he was helping people transition out of incarceration, helping them with addiction, helping them with recovery, helping them, basically restoring them back. It's very important work, but restoring them back as hopefully productive citizens, productive members of our communities. Vital work. Very much believe in the mission. But I had found that you know, Adam and another executive at the organization have been giving themselves loans. They had positioned a for-profit company that they have interest in to profit from the activities of the nonprofit. Anyway, after my first story about the loans, the Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division sent F5 Project a letter and said two things. First of all, your registration as a charitable organization with the Secretary of State is expired, and it is currently illegal for you to collect donations. You need to do something about that. My understanding is that the F5 Project has made that good. They have gotten their registration back in order, so they're good. And frankly, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a good thing. But no harm, no foul. They got it done fine. The other thing it brought up, and this is I think what really makes that letter newsworthy, and I wasn't aware of this when I did the initial reporting, is that the attorney for the Consumer Protection Division pointed out it is illegal under North Dakota law for a nonprofit to make loans to an executive. It is illegal under North Dakota law to do that. So that becomes an issue for F5 in terms of it's illegal under the law for them to have made those loans. Additionally problematic is when I looked at the timeline, there was a gap where I was reporting about the loans and the F5 project wasn't commented. So I wrote an article about the loans. The Consumer Protection Division sent the F5 project the letters pointing out that these loans were illegal. After that letter was sent, the F5 project put out a statement to myself and the public saying we checked out and everything about these loans was fine. The board, or at least a message from the F5 project that was representing itself as coming from the board, said that they checked everything out and that the loans were illegal. Yet they had received a letter, or had been sent a letter at least, from the Attorney General's office before they made that statement saying these loans were not legal. Now, at this point, the F5 project is not responding to any of my inquiries. I have a question, frankly. The F5 project is having me correspond with a generic email address on their domain. I have no idea who is writing those emails, who is signing them. I'm not real clear who's on the board right now. A board member, they had, when I started this reporting, their website listed 3 board members. That's now down to 2. One of the board member who is no longer listed there is not responding to me either. I don't know if they have a functioning board because the IRS requires a 501c3, a nonprofit like that, to have 3 board members at least. So I don't know, but it just, again, it gets problems. And Chad, that was the big news to me. I was not aware that North Dakota state law prohibits loans from a nonprofit to an executive.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that either. And obviously F5 wasn't aware of that either, or else they hopefully wouldn't have said a statement that said everything that is done here is legal, because it doesn't appear like it was. We've talked a lot on here about the incredibly good work that Adam Martin has done and sort of his story. If I'm going to give any advice to F5 right now, and I don't know if they listen to the podcast or not, this is not like, just slow down, fix this stuff, and go back to doing the work that you're doing, right? I mean, like, get the loans taken care of, make sure your registration is good, make sure your board is, 3 people, 5 people, whatever you need to be, and then go back and start doing the great work you're doing again. It feels like there's a drip, drip, drip sort of thing going on. I alluded to a letter to the editor that was in the forum that was defending Adam Martin, not even against these accusations, just sort of his character. And I think both of us know Adam, and I don't think either of us think that he's like some like horrible person.
Right.
I think he's doing really, really difficult work. And sometimes when you're doing really, really difficult work, it's hard to keep up with the compliant part of things when you're doing difficult work. But now I think they should just communicate with you, communicate with the public that they're going to clean these things up and they're going to reset and move forward.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if this stuff keeps happening, people are going to start, I don't know if they're going to keep digging or if all of a sudden government officials get a little nervous about granting money or what that happens. But I think now's the time for complete transparency and focus on the work and get this kind of stuff behind
And,
you.
and so far we're not getting it. And I don't want to say push back, but just to provide some context to what you just said, the F5 project is almost a decade old now.
Yeah.
And they are a mature organization that has
Yeah.
millions of dollars in revenues every year. Compliance at this point shouldn't be an issue.
You're right.
They should be making better choices than this. And they didn't. I agree with you. I'm not out to paint F5 or Adam Martin. I think F5 does wonderful work. Has a lot of wonderful people working for him. I think Adam Martin has done a lot of wonderful work. Some of his social media posts during this cold snap were his work to try to make sure that people have a warm place to get inside, opening up F5's offices and things like that. That's wonderful. Nothing but praise for that. But it doesn't change the fact that, from my
Yeah.
perspective, he's made some poor choices.
Yep.
And they need to clean this up. And I think the longer they let this linger and the longer they go without now I should note that the Consumer Protection Division gave them a deadline of February 1st to respond to the issues with the loans. Are they being repaid? How much is there? If they're not repaid, what is the plan for them? I don't know what they're going to do with that because again, there's a law in the books that says you can't do that. You know, I would hope that if F5 is really making a good, this is just me as a citizen, if F5 is making a really, a forthright effort to clean it up and to be transparent, get the loan off the books and move forward, then I think that's just enough, right? Like we fixed the problem, hopefully, and now we're all going to move on with our lives. And as you said, get back to the work. If they continue the bunker mentality and I think continue pretending as though nothing was done wrong, then I think there's reason for whether it's policymakers or whoever, there's reason for them to wonder, is this a place where we want to be putting a lot of tax dollars
Yep.
or a lot of private donations?
And obviously, even with the work they do, they're constantly in chaos. They're constantly in chaos. That's the work they do is chaos, right? I mean, it's people who are in tough ways and trying to calm their things down. This side of it should not be chaotic. The compliant side should not be chaotic. And again, I think they should respond to you. I agree with you 100%. If they respond to the Attorney General's office by February 1st, they've figured this out, the AG's office should drop this. There's no reason to pursue this.
And I have no reason to believe that
Right.
they won't. I mean, the fact that they're saying, please give us a report, please give us a status thing. And already they've apparently have cleared up the charitable organization registration. Again, that's paperwork and it's not a good thing that they let it lapse. But whatever. I'm not out to ruin an
They're
organization.
probably not the only charitable organization that let
Sure.
their status lapse.
And in the
Yep.
grand scheme of things, it's not that huge a deal.
Right.
That said, they got to clean these up. And I think
Clean
they
it
got
up.
to show we're getting our act together and we're going to be doing things right. I have yet to see that. And I hope they start talking to me a little bit. I'm not the enemy here. But again, just from a public trust perspective, they get a lot of tax dollars. They get a lot of support from the public. They have a lot of donations, a lot of businesses, a lot of organizations that are partnering with them. And they have to do better than this.
Yep.
I think that's it. All right. We'll put a pin in it there. Thank you so much for listening. As always appreciate it. Remember, if you want to participate in the show, you can always call us or text us 701-587-3141. You can also visit us at plaintalknd.com. Follow us on YouTube, follow us on Spotify. You can find us on all the podcasting platforms. Really appreciate it. We've really had a lot of uptick in people following us on social media, watching our clips, watching our videos. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much for supporting the show. We'll talk again.